So first we're going to talk about what a research plan is, broadly speaking, why it's important to write one, and why 5 years, why not 1 year, why not 10 years? So we'll do some of those basic things, and then Liza's really going to get down and dirty into the nitty-gritty of, okay, now what? How do I go about writing that research plan? So first of all, what is a research plan? I'm sure some of you have taken a stab at these already, but in case you haven't, this is a real personalized map that relates to your projects and goals, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a plan of how you're going to go about doing your research. It doesn't necessarily just include research, as Liza's going to talk to you about a little bit, and it's something that you need to put a lot of time and effort into in the beginning, and then if you don't revisit it, it's really a useless document. So something that you need to come back to repeatedly, at least annually. And Liza and I will both talk to you a little bit about the ways that we go about doing that, and making it more visible, so it's not just a document that sits around and once a year you pull it up and look at it. It can be designed and should be designed, I think, especially initially with the help of a mentor or colleague, and you all will get lots of that while you're here in the next 2 days. And it does serve multiple purposes, so different links, different types of details. And Liza, again, will show you some examples of different research plans. So why? Why do you want to do that? Oh, and I forgot to say, too, getting started here, we started the slides for this talk, we started as a jumping off point, Ray Kent's talk from last year. So some of the slides we've borrowed from him, so many thanks to him for that. But why do we want to do a research plan? Well, to me, the big thing is the vision. And Dr. Barlow talked this morning already about your line of research and really knowing where you want to go. And this is where that shows up with all of the nuts and bolts in place. So what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to contribute? Most of you are at the stage in your career where you probably have started out with that you want to change the world scenario and realize that whatever you wanted your first research project to be really is your entire career. And getting that down and into the point where it's manageable projects that you can do. And this is where you're going to map out what those projects are and setting reasonable timelines for that. You want to really demonstrate, again, as Dr. Barlow mentioned, your independent thinking and your own creativity, whatever that is that you've been establishing as a PhD student, postdoc, and beyond. This is where you come back to, okay, here's how I'm going to go about achieving all of that. This next point, learning to realistically gauge how long it takes to achieve each goal, this for most of us is a phenomenally challenging thing to do. Most of us really overestimate what we can do in a certain amount of time, and we learn the hard way that you can't, and that's another reason why we need to keep coming back to these plans repeatedly and learning over time what's really manageable, what's really doable, so that we can still reach our goals and be very strategic about how we do that. And when you're not strategic, you don't meet the goals. I mean, that's just the way it goes. Your time gets sucked into so many different things. So we need to be really practical and strategic about it. Nearly everything we do is going to take longer than we think. And I think this last one is something that maybe we don't talk about enough, is really being honest with ourselves about the role of research in our lives. All of the mentees that are here today obviously have research as a primary role in their lives, or they wouldn't be here. But not all of you are at very high-level research universities. Some of you have chosen to go elsewhere where research maybe isn't going to be quite playing the same role as it is for other people. And I just want to welcome all of you who are mentees to have open and frank conversations about that with your mentors while you're here, that your plan may not look like the same plan of the mentor who's sitting across from you. So we're all here to have those kinds of conversations and want to make sure that what you're setting out for yourself really makes sense for you and is practical for you, given the role that research has in your life. So it's going to, the research plan for somebody at an R01 intensive research university is going to look quite different from somebody who's at a primary teaching university. And I think we need to be open and practical about that. So getting sidetracked, as somebody who's been doing this now on the professor side of things for 10 years, and all of the other mentors are mostly as seasoned or much more seasoned than I am, we all know that I love this picture. I just found this picture the other day. This feels like my life. You can get pulled in so many different directions once you are a professor. and you will get asked to do 1,000 different things. And there are lots of great opportunities that are out there. And especially initially, I think it's tempting to say yes to all of them. But I think we have to be, if you're going to be productive, you have to be very strategic. And this may be, I'm going to be a little bit sexist against my own sex here for a minute, but my observation has been that women tend to fall into this a little bit more than men do, in saying, yeah, wanting to say yes and be people pleasers and everything that comes down the pike. And it is a professional skill to learn how to say no, and how to do that in such a way that you're not burning bridges as you go down the path. And that is an absolutely critical skill if you're going to be a successful researcher. I can't tell you how many countless people I've seen who are very bright, very dedicated, have the skills that it takes in terms of doing the work, but then they're not successful because they've gotten sidetracked and they try to be too much of a good citizen, too much service to the department, too much, sure, I'll take on that extra class, or whatever it is that comes down the line. I just spoke with a professor recently who who had something like 5 hours a week of office hours scheduled every single week for one class, which is Margaret's shaking her head like this, saying, are you kidding me? I mean, that's crazy stuff. But he wanted to really support his students, and his students loved him, but he was not going to get tenure. Like that, that's the story. So we have to be very thoughtful and strategic. And what can help you with this, which ASHA very firmly recognizes, again, which is why we're here, is that your mentors in your life should be there to help you learn these skills and learn what to say yes to and learn what to say no to. So I've learned to say things like, well, let me check with my mentor before I agree to that. And it gives you a way out, an easier way out of that. The line that I use a lot is, let me check with my department head, or I just said this to somebody last week, I just promised my department head 2 weeks ago that I would only do X number of external workshops this year, so I'm going to have to turn this one down. And that, again, those are really important skills to develop. And having that research plan in place that you can go back to and say, you know what, it's not on my plan, I can't do it. If I do it, then if I tell myself, I have to go back to my research plan and figure out what I'm going to kick off in order to review this extra paper, in order to take on this extra task. So the plan also helps me to know exactly what to say no to, and to be very direct and have a very strong visual. I actually have my research plan up on a giant whiteboard in my office, and so that I can always go back to that and see where I am. And I say to myself, okay, what am I going to kick off of here? Nothing. Okay, I have to say no to whatever it is that comes up. So just being strategic, and this is where I see most beginning professors really end up taking that, there may be a wrong fork in the road, taking that right instead of that left, and ending up not being the successful researcher that they really wanted to be. So what evidence really supports research planning? Well, this was something that Ray Kent had found, that a recent analysis found that postdoc scholars who developed a written plan with their postdoc advisors were much more productive than those who didn't. And your performance during a postdoc, and I know a lot of you have either finished your postdocs or have decided not to, or so more simply just during those first 6 years, and the decisions you make really do establish the foundation for the rest of your professional life. So very important to get started and get off on the right foot. I love this quote, just found it the other day. Productivity is never an accident. It is always the result of commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. So what we see with productivity is that postdoc scholars, and again, Dr. Barlow mentioned some similar numbers, who developed written productivity expectations with their advisors were more productive than those who didn't. So you see 23% more papers submitted, 30% more first author papers, and more grant proposals as well. So we want to be very focused and strategic about all of this. So why 5 years? Basically, I'm going to start with number 5. It's long enough to build a program of research, but short enough to deal with changing circumstances. That's really the long and the short of the matter, as well as these other things as well that I won't take the time to go through point by point.